It's the same. Oh, that's not great with the
No,
popping.
Not good.
1, 2, 3. Okay. There you go. All right, so what time is it?
It is 12:30.
It's literally past midnight. Interesting. So the Dempster, so we started out, and all we pretty much had to go on was what people told us, right?
Yeah.
So what did people tell us?
So it's kind of crazy, and it seems as if very few people who actually talked about Dempster Highway actually drove it.
Yeah.
First of all, and the ones that hadn't had the wildest stories to tell, or just saying that if you don't own a crazy expedition vehicle, you're not going to make it down and back up.
Most people told us that you need 2 sets of spare tires in
Yeah.
order to make it down and back.
Yeah. And
Which was one of the few things that maybe didn't go wrong.
Yeah.
On the trail.
A spare was not really very necessary. It's not often that tires just pop on gravel.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you really have to hit a sharp rock, which there were a couple, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't like crazy. It wasn't rock climbing. It was a road.
Yeah.
I think we had a lot of confidence going in. We talked to some locals, and I mean, it seems like the people who had actually done it, were a lot more relaxed about the road. They were just like, oh yeah, it's just a highway. You can drive it,
Yeah.
And they just, the more outfitted your vehicle is, the better you're going to do.
Starting the drive, I was very much looking forward to it. The car lasted phenomenally well, and up until the last 200 miles of the Dempster Highway, it performed really well. I was excited most for the landscape we were going to encounter, driving very quickly for long distances. I really love that.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. I mean, there was just the beginning of the drive was something that I thought maybe only existed in Scotland or something. It was just kind of overhanging clouds and rolling mountains, a few Rockies and just a green cover. I mean, it was really pretty.
Yeah.
And then we kind of got out of the main area, and it became more hilly, more flat, and a lot more room to open it up.
Yeah. Rolling hills with very little trees kind of around.
Yeah.
Which I was also looking forward to encountering, and it was almost exactly as I thought it would be.
Right. It was very Baja, very rally-like.
Yeah.
And you could drive the car like that out there,
Yeah.
especially with the setup that you had. However, it did not go. Well, I mean, for the most part, we did pretty good. I mean, we made it all the way up there without really any major issues.
Yeah.
Our biggest blockade on the first day and throughout the whole drive was gas.
Yeah.
Right, because there was only really one gas stop in between the start of the drive and Inuvik. And so if you don't fill up there, unless you have some car with insane range, you're just not going to make it.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to have about 500 miles of range to not have to stop at that gas station.
Yeah.
And as we pulled up on the first day, there was a very kitted out Land Rover Defender that drove right past the gas station. Had no need to stop. I assume it's diesel and had obviously crazy range with some fuel tanks.
Right.
But very, very cool vehicles that we've seen on the road so far.
We got to Inuvik. We stayed in a hotel. I was just super tired. I just wanted a hotel. I didn't want to camp there.
Yeah.
That's just me. But mostly just disappointed that my car wasn't up there and I didn't have my car bed to sleep in. So the next day, we stayed in Inuvik at night. We got there pretty late, but we did make it there. We were worried about fuel, but when we did fill up, we realized that we didn't really have that much to worry about. You have a 26-gallon tank. We were maybe getting 12, 13 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
And we had an extra 5-gallon jug, which we used on each stretch. And the car made it there with plenty of fuel room to spare.
Yeah.
We got up the next day, and it was basically, an hour and a half to the beach. And, that was probably some of the most taxing and sketchiest part of the drive. Mostly because it was a little muddy.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience with that last section.
I really enjoyed the mud too.
Yeah,
I
it
enjoyed
was fun.
sliding around some corners. It was definitely mud coupled with some pretty large potholes. The biggest potholes were at the beginning of the drive and at the end of the drive. I still really enjoyed it. I enjoyed going very quickly, testing my skill as a driver too.
Right.
I enjoy that experience most of all, being able to mentally handle these situations when they happen.
And what was your experience as you finally made it to the top of the world, essentially?
Very, very surreal.
Right.
Thinking that, I don't know, a few years ago, I never could have pictured myself doing such a thing.
Right.
Driving as far as northern Canada. Plus, knowing the fact that almost no one I know has ever been there or will ever go there is a crazy thought.
Yeah.
So...
But as we found out, I mean, there's a huge community of people who are determined to get there and come from all over the world to do so.
Yeah.
Which is really amazing. And I'm with you there. I thought it was a very surreal and very cool experience. I did think it was interesting that, you know, we're that far north, and when you think of that far north, you think it's freezing, and it wasn't. I mean, it was like 50 degrees outside.
That was probably the craziest thing to me, too, was just how warm it was. We slept that night, and it was near 50 degrees.
Yeah.
Literally at the furthest north point you can go in Canada, almost. And it's crazy.
Okay, first off, okay, this is really bad. It's just turning into smoke because it's like the end.
Yeah.
I mean, as we're experiencing right now, and then also on the drive, having the day cycles be insanely infinite was helpful because I mean, you really didn't realize that it was like now. I mean, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And
yeah, your internal clock just gets all screwed up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you don't know when to go to bed. You don't feel tired when you normally would.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's almost 1 a.m. right now, and I could probably stay up for a few more hours and not be tired at all.
Yeah. So anyway, the drive back down is where things really got interesting. Started out with I kind of did a 2 or 3 hour stretch of the road, and I got to experience the car on that kind of surface, and I was very impressed when I had it. It glided pretty much over everything. I was a little timid at first and slowly got more confident with it. And yeah, I mean, the car, Porsche as a brand and all of their vehicles are always brilliant. And to be able to experience, both extremes. I had a GT3 and now I'm driving a Baja Cayenne.
Yeah.
And just both ends of the spectrum were thrilling in different ways. And I'm glad I got to have that experience.
Yeah, two of the most extreme cars that Porsche makes.
Yeah. The last 300 kilometers, that's where things really got tough and interesting. We were forced to camp yet again because we didn't have gas. We got to the gas station that's the midway point, and they're closed at 11 o'clock, even though the sun's still, even though the sky is still blue.
Yeah.
So there's not much we can do other than just kind of wait it out and camp the night.
So Evan tent camped for the first time in his life.
Yeah, I tent camped for the first time in my life. I'm uncultured, apparently.
I'm willing to bet that he didn't get good sleep.
I didn't. But you know what? The main reason I didn't get good sleep is because there was sunlight all night.
Yeah.
But I did manage to sleep, and I think that in and of itself is enough of a accomplishment.
Yeah, and then we fueled up, started the drive back.
Yeah.
Going about 140 kilometers an hour for quite a while, until the front end started to feel a little shaky. My steering was definitely felt pigeon-toed, and things were kind of wobbly when they shouldn't be, so we decided to pull over to the side of the road. Upon pulling over to the side of the road and investigating, I found that my tie rod had completely been disconnected from the steering rack, and it felt like the ball joint had just pulled out. When we got back to town and investigated, it turns out the vibrations of Dempster Highway just unscrewed my tie rod. completely. And luckily it didn't fuck the threads up and I was able to screw it back in. But after we found out that it was messed up, we sat there for a minute and pondered and then tried to think about how we could correct the situation. So as I was sitting there contemplating 1,000 things in my head, how we could remedy the situation, what we could do on the side of the road to get it fixed, I thought it was much worse than it is. I thought the tie rod was snapped in half. So I decided, since the car drove, that I would do what I can to get it back on the road, get that wheel straight in the wheel well, and continue on with the journey, acting as if it had not disconnected itself.
Right.
And after about 20 feet of dragging the wheel, it didn't work. We stopped. And then I straightened the wheel and decided to try again. And after about another 30 feet of the wheel dragging, it finally snapped straight, and it remained straight until we ran into a construction zone where they stop you and then a pilot car has to bring you through. We made it all the way to the end where the pilot car was letting us go, and this woman came up to us and kind of sort of implied that we needed to slow down, so we did. Then we got to a speed where the wheel turned.
Yep.
And I know that she got the satisfaction of watching us drag my wheel for about 100 yards after that.
It did not want to go back straight, and you did have to get out of the car again and actually physically straighten it out.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like round 2, we're done.
Yeah.
And thankfully it did go back straight, and we just kept enough speed to keep it straight.
Fortunately, I got really good at driving with only one tie rod.
I was a little terrified. Yeah. But, we made it.
I think that you got pretty relaxed towards the end.
Yeah.
You were sitting there calmly in your chair.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there were moments where Evan was definitely freaking out, trying to backseat drive a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're a passenger in a vehicle that has a wheel that could turn at any point in time.
Yeah.
But,
I would very much not like to die as much as you would not like to die.
Fair enough. We made it, and the car did. Other than that, we also killed the shock.
Yeah. Yeah, my shock, I believe it's from the spindle hitting it at full extension, just managed to completely destroy the shock body. And basically all of the insides of the shock are now down from the body to around the actual shaft of the shock. So they're just kind of sitting there. It lost all of the oil. It lost all of the gas pressure within the shock. And now it's nearly useless until I get back to maybe Bend, Oregon is where I'll have the shocks shipped to. It'll be about a week maybe before I get there.
So basically, to sum things up, it's definitely possible in a lot of vehicles.
It's possible in a lot more vehicles if you go more slowly.
Yeah, it's possible in a lot more vehicles if you go more slowly. We were not going slowly by any means. We really wanted that rally kind of experience, and we got it.
Yes, we did.
And if anything, this is a good test of the suspension. You were planning to do the Baja race, and so now that maybe switch some stuff up for that long haul.
Very much. That's kind of why I wanted to test it on this road. That's why I wanted to drive this road. Most importantly, just move as quickly as I could for long periods of time and see if the car holds up, and I know what to replace or things to do to prevent it from happening again.
Yeah. But ultimately, we had an amazing time. We talked to some really cool people. There were some incredible stories up at the Arctic. Yeah. There was a few gentlemen that rode their bicycles all the way up the road. And, apparently there's people that ride them from other countries there, which is just unbelievable.
All the way from Argentina. Prudhoe Bay and Tuktoyaktuk.
Yeah. There was a man who was...
Chris Kruger.
Yeah.
Who we've been informed of. Still haven't looked him up.
But
yet. I guess he does insane things all the time, and he was paddleboarding across the Arctic Ocean to see which islands or cities he could get to along the bay. and the only thing that's going to stop him is probably icebergs.
Yeah.
And then he's just going to stop wherever he is. His friends are going to buy him a plane ticket to get back, and that's it. But not knowing who he was, seeing this man set off on the paddleboard with just like 2 bags strapped to this
Paddleboard,
massive paddleboard,
Yeah.
Was nuts.
Yeah, I think, people come out here to this road looking for an adventure. And, I mean, it's an adventure. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah. It can be as much of an adventure or as little of an adventure as someone makes it.
Yeah.
And we had a hell of an adventure.
Yeah.
Enough for a lifetime.
Yeah. Plenty of stories to tell, and
I think almost any single day of this trip would be a story in its own right.
Yeah. I agree. It's been pretty unreal, and I'm glad that we were able to do that together. Unfortunately, I would have loved to see the Audi in front of the Arctic Circle sign, but
very much, me too. It would have made it.
It would have made
for
it.
The
Yeah.
alternator.
You would have had to slow down a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it I think it would have been okay. So, until next time, maybe never, but maybe again. I'd like to do it. I'd like
in
to
smart cars.
Maybe in smart
GT3s.
cars. Yeah.
We will eventually come back and make this trip again. Maybe, hopefully in the winter next time.
Yeah. It'd be a whole new, completely different race.
Probably smoother.
Probably.
From what we've heard. Smoother, for sure.
Somebody told us they took their M3 up there in the wintertime.
No, not just an M3, an E36 M3.
E36 M3. I'm still skeptical, but
I
maybe.
mean, anything's possible,
Yeah.
I guess.
You know what we won't forget, though? The mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely not. The mosquitoes were by far the worst part of this trip. Breaking the car repeatedly. Evan's car breaking down.
Every time you open the door, swarms. 50 mosquitoes come into the car. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah. And there's only 4 places on this drive where there weren't mosquitoes. Or that we didn't deal with it. At Tuktoyaktuk, Inuvik, Eagle Point, and here in Dawson. Those are the only points where you don't really have mosquitoes swarming you at every second of the day.
Right. They're still there. They're still around. They'll just, nip at you a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's
not 50 trying to attack you one single time.
Absolutely.
Oh, and if you're watching this and if you're planning for Dempster, nobody is going to tell you, apparently, that there are ferries.
There are ferries.
You have to make 2 ferries. One closes at 12:45 and the other closes at, what was it, 11?
It was 11:30.
11:30 was the last ferry ride. So 12:45 for the first one, and then 11:30 for the second one.
On the way up.
Which doesn't really make sense.
No.
But plan for that, and then also plan for the gas stations to be closed. I would say anything after probably 9 p.m.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked to maybe 50 people on the way up here, all talking about the Dempster, whether they'd done it or not, and none of them told us about the ferries. So that was, it was easy. It was, it was kind of lackluster, but, it was still something pretty significant.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, if your car's never been on a ferry before, it would be another experience that you would have.
Yeah. Yep.
Except we're only halfway done.
Right.
A little over halfway done. Especially if you get the Audi RS6 and drive it all the way back to Florida.
Good Lord. Yeah, hey,
price.
Don't break down. Don't break down on the Dempster, but don't break down in Canada on the Alaskan Highway in general.
No.
If you have a new Audi. If you have anything other than a Ford, don't break down. If you have a Ford, there's a parts shop around the corner. But other than that, yeah, I basically, my car's alternator died and I had to have it towed 1,000 miles to Anchorage, and $6,600 Canadian later, I'm still waiting to find out what's wrong with the car. So, yeah, not a fun time.
At least it's covered under warranty.
Yes.
Hopefully the tow will be, but who knows?
Who knows? Well, that's that. Thanks for an adventure, I guess.
Absolutely. It's glad to be here.